Hey guys, tonight we're going to do the 6 basic principles of the Constitution. This is the last objective in this unit, so I know you're both excited and very sad that your test is right around the corner. So, your next quiz will be on Monday, and the topics covered again will be on 1.6 through 1.8. That's the constitutional compromises, Federalist and Anti-Federalist, and the Bill of Rights. So please make sure that you are prepared for that. From a need-to-know basis, 1.9 is to identify the 6 principles of the Constitution. So the vocab is popular sovereignty, limited government, checks and balances, separation of powers, federalism, and judicial review. These are concepts, guys, that you will hear throughout this course and things that you will hear over and over again. So please make sure that you understand 1.9 and don't just like, oh, it's the last part of the unit. It really does matter, and you will see really strange things on your guided notes if you printed those off. You will see things that might belong on a hamburger or at a value meal, some establishment. And they're pickles, lettuce, cheese, supersize, fry, and a juice. So if you're looking at that, it's just an easy way to remember them. Sometimes people are like, okay, I've forgotten one of the 5 or one of the 6, or I can only remember 4 or 5 of the 6. Pickles, lettuce, cheese, supersized fry, and a juice somehow sticks in my head a whole lot more than popular sovereignty, limited government, and I can use the first letter of those to bounce back and forth between what I know and what I need to know. So if that helps, it helps. If it doesn't, enjoy the pickles and lettuce and cheese. Alright, so the preamble of the Constitution, guys, is the introduction of the Constitution, and this is probably one of the most famous introductions ever. So you can read through this. I'm not going to read it to you because that's just weird, but it outlines basically why the Founding Fathers wrote the Constitution the way that they did and what they had hoped to accomplish by writing said document. So popular sovereignty is the idea that the power is held by the people, or the government gets its power from the people. So the power to govern is given through the Constitution, and of course, it is limited by what the people want. So there are amendments that protect sovereignty, and most of them are voting amendments. The 15th Amendment gave African American males the right to vote. 17th said that senators were going to be directly elected, and we'll talk about what that is a little bit later on. The 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote, finally. Number 24 outlawed the poll tax. So yes, people used to have to pay to be able to vote. So it was outlawed by the 24th Amendment. And the 26th Amendment lowered the voting age to 18 from 21. So that was during the Vietnam War. And people thought it was a really good idea to allow the people to be able to vote who we were sending off to war in Vietnam. All right, so the second thing, this is your lettuce. This is limited government. So basically the government can only do what the people give it power to do. So if the people don't like the government, then they have the right to be able to basically overthrow this. And so, again, this is leading up to where we got some of our ideas about the Declaration itself. The rule of law, we already know. Those who govern must also obey the law. Checks and balances, of course, this is one of Montesquieu's famous ideas, and it said that every branch is going to be checked or limited in its power by the other branches. And this is, of course, in order to make sure that one branch power. This chart, you don't need to know for this particular unit. You will see it again in Unit 2. So again, I try to give you some heads up about what you're about to see. It's not meant to scare you. This is super easy, and you will totally understand this by the time it comes along. But basically, we don't want all the power residing in one of these 3 branches, and so we're going to be able to allow the different branches to have their own roles, but for them not to have all the power. The separation of powers, again, another one of Montesquieu's ideas, so that we should have 3 different branches with 3 different roles. So the legislative branch makes the laws, the executive branch enforces the laws, and the judicial branch interprets the laws. So these little dashes down here about their representing and how long they serve, you will eventually need to know it, so I think it's a good idea that you've already written it. But for this particular unit, I'm not going to ask you how long they serve. So federalism we talked a little bit about already, but basically the idea is that some powers are going to be for the federal government and some powers are going to be reserved for the states, and then some powers are actually going to be what we call concurrent, so they're going to be for both the federal and the state governments. So the states can still have their own laws, their own courts, their own constitutions, their own elected officials, but again, the top dog is still going to be the federal government. All right, last one, guys, judicial review. This is an actual power that the court gave itself. So if you remember anything about John Green's video, the one that we watched last time, he did say that, yeah, they gave it to themselves, and it was a case called Marbury versus Madison, and again, something that you will hear a little bit later on. But it's the power of the court to determine the constitutionality of a government, of a law, of a person's actions, and so this is basically looking at laws that have been passed by the Congress itself, the legislative branch, and they've been approved by the president. But if the Supreme Court doesn't believe that it is an appropriate and a constitutional law, then they have the power to be able to overturn all of that. So again, a lot of checks and balances even written in through some of these principles. The Supremacy Clause comes into play. It says the U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land. So if the federal government has one law and the state government has another law, then whatever is written by the federal government is going to proceed or come out on top. And that's what everybody is going to have to follow from that point forward.